Well, hey there, my friends. It's Dr. Lori Friesen here. And if you're working on setting up your classroom and maybe you're feeling a little unsure about class jobs, how many to have, whether every student should get a job, or how to avoid getting overwhelmed by all of it, you're in the right place. This is a topic that comes up a lot inside Ready for School Academy. So today we're answering a great question from Brandy, who's one of our Academy members, a third grade teacher who's right in the middle of getting her class jobs organized. So let's dive into this together with a simple step-by-step approach that's going to save you a lot of stress while building that student leadership and ownership that you want in your classroom. So whenever we're making decisions around our classroom, I really want to encourage you to start with your intention. So before we even pick jobs, we need to start with why you want to have them in the first place. So ask yourself, what do I want class jobs to teach my students? What is the point of doing this? What do I want these jobs to do for me and for them? Because for most teachers, class jobs aren't just about getting help passing out papers or cleaning the floor, although that's all important. They should all be taking ownership of the classroom with you. They're also about building student responsibility. They're about giving kids ownership in the classroom because, holy cow, when kids start feeling like they're an important part of your classroom, they take a lot more ownership. And they also really help with creating a sense of belonging and contribution. So the goal isn't just to keep them busy, right? It's to make them feel like they're important members of Team Friesen or whatever your classroom team is. And that's why we need to keep class jobs intentional and not allow them to become overwhelming. So the big question is usually, should every student have a job? So this is Brandy's main question. Should they? Should every student have a job? And the short answer is not necessarily, especially at the beginning of the year. So it's okay not to assign every student a job at the same time, especially, like I said, as you're getting started at the beginning of the year. I recommend assigning jobs to instead like small groups or pairs and rotating your teams weekly or biweekly because you don't want to overwhelm you or your students. It allows everything to stay manageable and you'll actually keep doing them because if you try to add too many at once, it's going to become overwhelming. So I want you to focus on quality over quantity because this makes it easier for students to remember and follow through, and it also makes it easier for you to keep up with it. So for example, if you have 24 students, you might assign 6 to 8 jobs per week, and then you could have 2 or 3 students assigned to each job and then rotate who gets to be on leadership duty for each job. And that way everyone gets a turn over time without trying to manage 24 moving parts at once. And the kids who didn't have a class job in my classroom are always assigned to making sure the floor was cleaned and also asking other students if they would like help with their job. So I would always ask those students to clean up, try to pick up 3 to 5 pieces of paper, and then go and ask other students if they would like help with their job. If nobody needs help, they can sit and read at their desk. That's fine. They don't have a job right now. So the next thing to remember is to choose jobs that truly serve your classroom, right? So you don't need a job for every single student just to be fair. Choose jobs that serve a real function, just like in the real world. If it isn't something you need help with in running your classroom, it shouldn't be a class job. So some examples that I could not live without that are actually useful in a third grade classroom or any elementary classroom, basically. Chair checker, can be at the end of the day to put the chairs up, or if your school requires that chairs are pushed in, whatever your policy is. Line leader, kids love that job. And then of course, caboose, you can have the end of the line job. Sanitizer captain, they can be in charge of, handing out sanitizer to everybody. Mailbox monitor, plant caretaker, if you have plants in your classroom. Librarian, always tidying up the library towards the end of the day. Your tech helper, that was the person who always made sure things were plugged in or helped me with the volume, all those kinds of things. Lights manager, turning the lights off every time you leave the classroom and turning them back on when you come in. You can have a morning meeting host because I really like to get my kids starting to take over the morning meeting and running the morning meeting throughout the year. So you can start training your kiddos how to do that. And also a teacher assistant or a special helper. I loved that job. It was literally the favorite job in my whole classroom for all those extra errands that you might need someone to do each week. Stuff is always coming up and kids are always happy to go to the office for you. Again, just don't be afraid to combine jobs or make them team-based. You might have a clean team, for example, instead of like a separate desk, floor, and supply monitors, right? So the clean team is in charge of all of those things whenever you need something cleaned. The next thing you want to keep in mind is to ensure you make it sustainable. So I can't emphasize that enough. So avoid getting overwhelmed by, first of all, having a visual job chart that students can easily reference. It needs to be viewable from anywhere in the classroom. And then rotate your jobs, like I mentioned before, weekly or bi-weekly, so you're not constantly updating. And at the beginning of the year, I recommend only changing your jobs out every couple of weeks because kids need time to learn how to do their jobs. And then train your students at the beginning of the year. Model the job, practice it together, and hold them accountable. Keep giving them feedback every day about what's going well and what they need to change. It's a lot of work at the beginning of the year, but then it saves you so much time throughout the year. And then the reason you want teams or pairs or 3 students for each job is that way you have backup students or like substitutes for when someone is absent. You always have someone who can take over the job. And once your system is in place, it starts to run itself, and that's when the magic happens. You'll see students stepping up. You'll see them reminding each other. You'll see them taking pride in their roles. The important thing is to remember that you're aiming to create a culture of leadership, right? So when class jobs are done right, it's not about managing chores in your classroom. It's about growing leaders. It's about having kids take ownership of your space. So you want to use language like, we all have an important role to play here. This is our classroom. We all need to take care of it. Our classroom runs because of your leadership and your contributions. And this job helps our whole class succeed. So you want to keep reinforcing that positive and how important the jobs are to getting our classroom running smoothly. And it's true. You're not just making that up. It's so true. It's amazing how much it can help your classroom. In all my years of running class jobs in my classroom, one of the most important things I've learned is that when you show gratitude for the effort that kids put into their jobs, and when you take the time to tell them how proud you are of them for taking pride in their work, how important it is to you that they are part of your classroom, and how grateful you are that they're helping, over time, you're going to start noticing that even kids who are hesitant to take on jobs, they really start to shine because they feel needed and they feel important and they feel seen. They're an important part of your classroom. So Brandy and everyone else wondering the same thing, remember, no, you don't need to give every student a job at the same time at the beginning of the year. Yes, you can have too many jobs if they overwhelm you or they don't serve a clear purpose. So start small. Keep it simple, and you can grow your system over time. Remember, you've got this. Your students are going to love the ownership and pride that comes from being an important part of your classroom team. It's really fun once you start getting everything working. So if you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with a teacher friend who's setting up their classroom right now. And I'd love to know in the comments below, let us know what works for you when it comes to class jobs, what you've tried and what you've kind of settled into and what works for you. Because remember, what works for one teacher may not work for you. By the end of the year, actually by mid-year, I had a class job for every single student in my classroom. So it was running itself. It was really fun. But I built into that. I didn't start with that. And at the beginning of the year, I did not start with everybody having a class job. So I hope that was helpful. See you next time. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. If you'd like help preparing for the school year, save your seat for my free class, How to Get Ready for the School Year in 5 weeks or less. And I'm going to show you a step-by-step plan, just like Brandy's doing, for how to prepare without all the overwhelming chaos in 1 or 2 hours a day. All right, my friends, have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, remember, just because you're a beginning elementary teacher, there is no need for you to struggle like one. Bye for now.